an introspective journey into the quiet green machinery of life. You wake not to sound, but to light. The sun arrives without asking, laying itself gently across your bed, over your pillow, into the corners of your quiet room. And without a word, your body knows what to do. Your skin feels it, your eyes blink toward it, your inner clock leans into its signal. But this light is not just for waking. It is for making tonight. You are going to follow it to the place where it becomes life. Far beyond your bedroom window, the same light falls upon a leaf. It lands like a whisper, soft and golden, on the open palms of a tree. You've seen green all your life, grass, vines, hedges. Forest sand perhaps thought of them as still, quiet, passive, but every leaf is alive with work. Every green thing holds a secret. It eats sunlight, not the way you eat, with a mouth and a chew, but through a process that has no sound, no hunger pang, no visible movement, only a slow, intricate ballet of molecules. It is called photosynthesis. And even if the word feels heavy now, let it roll gently across your thoughts, like the rhythm of rain. Photo means light. Synthesis means to make something. From light, you follow the beam of sunshine as it touches a leaf's surface, that soft green skin that's thinner than your eyelid. At first, it seems the light just rests there, warm and harmless. But beneath that thin skin lies a world of green machinery. Just below, like a second secret layer, are cells' tiny chambers filled with chloroplasts, the sun's quiet audience. These chloroplasts hold the key. They are like little solar panels, but living, brimming with a green pigment called chlorophyll. You can think of chlorophyll as light's translator. It knows how to take sunlight, something intangible and weightless, and whisper it into something the leaf can understand. Light is energy, yes, but to a plant it is fuel. As the sun rises, its photons, little packets of light, stream down in great numbers. They land on the chlorophyll molecules like dancers landing on a stage, and the stage responds with movement, with transformation, with life. You drift into the leaf's surface now, slow and unseen, passing through layers of waxy protection, then cell walls like soft glass, until you arrive at a single chloroplast. Inside, it is not green as you expect, but alive with colorless action. Here, light does not simply arrive. It is invited in. Photons, those tiny light letters sent from the sun, are absorbed by chlorophyll, and when they're caught, something extraordinary happens. An electron, nestled calmly in its place, becomes excited, not in the way you get excited before a birthday, but in the way a spark leaps from wire to wire. This excited electron begins a chain reaction, and energy it's charged through a long corridor of proteins. You can almost hear the gentle hum, like distant wind chimes in a breeze. This movement is called the light-dependent reaction. It's the first act of photosynthesis, and it's happening in every leaf around you, even now, even in the dark. Why all this effort? Why gather sunlight and stir electrons and set off tiny molecular relays? Because the plant is preparing to build, to turn air and water into sugar, kind of internal food, not just for itself, but for everything that eats, including you, every apple you've tasted, every grain of rice, every spoonful of honey. All of it began with a leaf quietly catching sunlight. You are, in this deep and quiet way, made of photosynthesis. You are walking sunlight, carried forward in carbon bonds. Tonight, as your body softens into sleep, know this: you have already been fed by light. Long before breakfast, long before hunger, the sun had already prepared your meal. Imagine a sunflower turning toward the sky. Imagine a mossy rock in a shaded forest, still pulling light from the edges. Imagine a tiny green sprout breaking through. Concrete, catching a single sliver of sun and beginning to work. This is not ancient magic. It is the daily ritual of light and leaf, energy and need, and it does not demand your attention. It happens quietly, consistently, completely. You lie. Still now, but the chloroplasts do not. They go on, they gather, they convert. In this way, the world is always growing, always renewing, always pulling sunlight into form. You are part of this green equation, not apart from it. Every breath you take in is an echo of a tree's exhale. Every cell of your body, from skin to spine, carries carbon that once floated free in the air, waiting to be pulled down by a leaf. And yet, the leaf does not work alone. It has rooms inside it, spaces sacred and strange, where these reactions unfold in careful harmony. What does this inner world look like? Where exactly does light go once it enters? The answer lies just beneath the surface, inside a place where green becomes a cathedral. You arrive not with footsteps, but with stillness. You do not knock. The leaf opens because it already knows you are part of this. You float gently beneath the surface, below the smooth epidermis of green, and there you find it quiet, vast, breathing, a cathedral built of light. There are no pews here, no stained glass, no chanting. But every part of this place is sacred, arranged not by human hands, but by nature's patient blueprint, folded again and again through the deep passage of time. You are not an intruder, you are a witness. Inside each cell of the leaf are tiny, living lanterns, chloroplasts, oval-shaped, soft-edged, floating in cytoplasm like boats on a gentle tide. These chloroplasts hold the most delicate engine your eyes will never see. They are the sanctuaries of photosynthesis, sunlight's inner sanctum. You drift closer to one. Its outer membrane is smooth, like silk stretched across a frame. Slip inside, and the world changes. There is no color here, not in the way your eyes expect. There is structure, quiet, and waiting. Within, you meet the stroma, soft, jelly-like, space that fills the chloroplast. This is not empty. It is full of potential. Enzymes float here, waiting like painters before a blank wall. Soon, they will craft sugar from air. But not yet. The stroma is the space between action, between breaths, of the plant's silent work, and then, deeper still, your gaze falls upon the thylakoids, stacked like green coins, like pancakes, like scrolls waiting to be read. One disc, then another, bundled into graceful stacks called graina. You drift among them, your mind brushing against ancient architecture. These thylakoid membranes are where light comes to be turned into current. This is not poetry. It is physics, chemistry, electricity woven into biology. Across these membranes run photosystems, the gears of the green machine. Photosystem 2, Photosystem I, each named in the order they were discovered, not the order they work. Photosystem 2 is first to greet the light. A photon arrives, single unit of sun's energy. It is caught by a chlorophyll molecule nestled in the center of the photosystem, like a sunbeam caught in a cupped hand. That chlorophyll gives up an electron, like a musician plucking the first note. That note begins a cascade, a flow called the electron transport chain. It moves from molecule to molecule, spreading energy the way ripples spread across a pond. The thylakoid membrane is not passive. It uses that flow to pump protons, hydrogen ions across its surface. This builds a difference, a kind of gentle tension between two sides. Like water behind a dam, the pressure holds, waiting for release, and release comes through ATP synthesis, a protein turbine that turns the proton flow into a chemical spark. This spark is ATP, a molecule every living cell uses as energy. From grass blade to grey matter, from fern to firefly, ATP is life's coin. But energy is not enough. The leaf also needs electrons. The electron lost from chlorophyll must be replaced. Where will it come from? From a gift given in silence. Water. Each chloroplast reaches into the moisture pulled from the roots, and through a process called photolysis, it splits water molecules apart. 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen and 1 precious electron. The oxygen is released. You breathe it. You owe every breath to this act of green sacrifice now. With energy from ATP and new electrons in hand, the chloroplast prepares for the next phase, making something lasting. Not energy that fades, but sugar that can be stored, used, shared. This will happen in the stroma, where the Calvin cycle quietly waits. But before you go there, linger a moment here. In this cathedral, in this temple of transformation, let yourself feel the scale of it, how small and vast it is at once. These thylakoids do not sing, but they resonate with the hum of balance. You imagine a leaf in sunlight, a child beneath, a tree, a deer grazing in a field, a lake covered in lilies. All of them are connected by this place, this interior green world. And though you can't see it with your eyes, your cells remember the food in your belly, the breath in your chest, the warmth in your hands, all were touched by this place. You may never step inside a chloroplast, not truly, but now, as you rest, you know it exists, and it works for you. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts settle like dust in the stroma. Each stack of thylakoids continues its work, whether you look or not. It does not rush, it does not sleep, it simply is. There is comfort in knowing something so small and unseen can hold the world together, that in a single cell of a single leaf, energy is gathered, stored, and given without pride, without pause. But what becomes of the light once it's caught and stored as ATP? What is built from this gift, this captured energy? There is another cycle waiting, not in the membrane, but in the stroma's patient space, ... where breath becomes sugar and air becomes fuel. You've seen sunlight pour across a field. You've felt it warm your face, slipping through your closed eyelids like honey. But you may not have known what that light was really doing, not until now, not until you shrink down gently into its smallest self. Tonight you will follow a photon, not a metaphor, not a thought, a real one. A particle of light born in the heart of the sun, forged in the pressurized breath of a burning star, and flung outward through space at the speed of well itself. This one left the sun about 8 minutes ago. That may not sound long, but for this photon it is everything. It has traveled 93 million miles, straight and true, weaving through atmosphere, dodging clouds, skipping past shadows, and now at last it lands, not on your hand, not on the ground, but on the broad, still surface of a leaf, a quiet leaf waiting in the morning light. The photon doesn't hesitate. It doesn't knock, doesn't pause, doesn't wonder if it's wanted. It is caught instantly by a chlorophyll molecule nestled within the photosystem. And here, the dance begins. Imagine the chlorophyll as a net strung tight with possibility. Its electrons sit in delicate balance, like dancers waiting on the edge of a stage. When the photon arrives, it delivers not motion, but invitation. It gives energy a gift in the purest form. An electron in the chlorophyll feels this gift and leaps, not with legs, but with energy. It jumps from its calm orbit to a higher one, excited, live, ready. This is called excitation. But think of it less like chaos, more like music swelling in a silent room. The electron, now energized, cannot stay where it is. It leaves, gently passed along to the next molecule and the next dot. This is the electron transport chain, a quiet corridor, a molecular relay, where one tiny particle moves with purpose, releasing just enough energy at every step to make something useful. ATP. You've heard that before. Adenosine triphosphate. But here, it's not a chemical, it's a form of applause. Each time the electron moves, it hands off energy, and the plant tucks that energy away, storing it like a secret in the folds of ATP. But let's slow down. Return to where it began at, photosystem 2. Here, the first photon struck, and the first electron danced. That electron's departure left a hole, an empty space the molecule could not ignore. And to fill it, the plant reaches into water. Yes, water. Using a protein complex called the oxygen-evolving complex. The plant pulls electrons from water molecules, splitting HO into 2 hydrogen ions, 1 oxygen atom, and a free electron, to replace what was lost. This too is a gift, because that oxygen doesn't stay. It floats upward, out through the tiny pores of the leaf, into the sky, into the air, into your lungs. Every breath you take has its beginning here, in this quiet transaction between photon and chlorophyll, between light and life, between a leaf and the wind. But the story doesn't stop there. The excited electron continues its journey, passed like a note through hands, through the proteins embedded in the thylakoid membrane. At each step, energy is siphoned off, not wasted, not lost, but used to pump protons into the thylakoid lumen, building pressure like a gentle tide behind a dam. This pressure isn't dangerous. It's patient, waiting, holding when the time is right. These protons flow back through ATP synthase, a spinning molecular machine. Something so small you'd never see it, yet so precise it could be mistaken for design. It turns, it clicks, it makes ATP, and still the electron travels. Now it is carried to photosystem I, a second station, a second chance to receive light. Another photon arrives, its own journey complete. It meets a second chlorophyll, and again the dance begins. Another electron leaps, another wave of energy released. This time, the electron is given to NADP, a molecule that, once filled, becomes NADPH, a container of high-energy electrons, ready to deliver them into the deeper processes of the leaf. Both ATP and NADPH are created now, 2 silent treasures made from sunlight. They do not sparkle, they do not hum, but they hold within them the promise of sugar, the promise of structure, of stem and root and petal and seed. You rest for a moment here, at the edge of the thylakoid membrane, watching as light becomes energy, and energy is folded into molecules you cannot see, but will one day eat, one day hold. Every berry, every blade of wheat, every kernel of rice, they all began with this dance. A photon, an electron, a leap. Again and again, across every leaf, It's happening right now in the jungles, in seaweed drifting in coastal tides, in prairie grasses waving beneath stars. No one hears it. No one needs to. You lie back and think of all the photons still arriving, all the leaves still listening, all the electrons still jumping, a world stitched together by a silent, ceaseless rhythm. And if you feel small, remember that photon that fed the leaf could have landed on your skin instead, and one did, perhaps, and your skin warmed, and your eyes blinked, and your heart beat. You are warmed by the same light that feeds the trees. You are stirred by the same rhythm that moves the electrons. In this way, you and the leaf are not so different. Both alive, both absorbing, both responding, and all of it begins with light, with a journey across space and a landing that lasts less than a second. And yet, what that photon leaves behind can last a lifetime. But this is only the beginning. The leaf now holds energy. Yes, but energy alone is not life. To build something to truly grow, it needs more. It needs water. It needs the quiet, essential gift that flows up from the roots and splits itself open, just to keep the light moving. It begins below, in darkness. Beneath your feet, beneath the ground, beneath the resting weight of stones and stories, there is water. Not rushing, not roaring, just waiting, just being. This water is not the crashing sea. It is not the laughter of rain. It is slow, pulled in silence, drawn up by roots you cannot see, roots that thread themselves through soil the way thoughts move through dreams. You are drifting downward now, into that cool hush beneath the earth, where roots reach like fingers long, searching, patient. They find the water and bring it in, not for drinking, not for washing, but for sharing, for giving something of themselves to the green world above. Each drop of water that enters a root is pulled upward by a force you do not feel but depend on every day. It's called transpiration, soft pull from the top of the tree, as though the leaves are breathing out and in, gently tugging the water skyward. You follow it, from soil to root hair, from xylem tube to the very veins of a leaf. There is no engine here, no heartbeat, only cohesion, only flow. The water moves because the tree asks. It rises because it must. And when that droplet, that molecule of HO arrives in the chloroplast, in the green cathedral of photosynthesis, its journey ends not in celebration, but in sacrifice. There is a machine inside the thylakoid membrane, not metal, not made, but evolved over eons to do one quiet task. It is called the oxygen evolving complex, and its job is to break what was once whole. The water molecule is split, not torn, not destroyed, but opened to hydrogen atoms, one oxygen atom, and a pair of electrons set free. The hydrogen ions are held. They will be used to build gradients, to spin turbines, to make ATP. The electrons are sent into the electron transport chain, gifted to replace those lost when chlorophyll danced with light and the oxygen. The oxygen is not needed, not by the leaf, not for photosynthesis, not for sugar, so it is released, breathed out through tiny pores in the leaf, called stomata. It floats into the air, a byproduct, an offering, a quiet exhale. That breath becomes your breath. The oxygen you took in this morning, the air that fills your chest as you lie here now, it came from water that gave itself away. You may not remember, but your lungs do. You are breathing the result of water's soft surrender. It is a strange truth that the very gas that keeps you alive was once part of a quiet molecule underground. never knowing it would one day become part of the sky. Water doesn't fight. It doesn't argue with its fate. It flows, it rises, it splits, it gives dot, and in giving, it becomes more than itself. It becomes the bridge between earth and atmosphere, between soil and sunlight, between what you are and what you will be. But let's stay with the electrons for a moment, because these are the true travelers, set free by light, guided by proteins. They flow through the thylakoid like a current of purpose. They are passed from molecule to molecule, and at each step they release energy, not wildly, not all at once, but gently, like warmth passed hand to hand. That energy pumps protons into the lumen, into the inner chamber of the thylakoid, where they gather not as chaos, but as potential. It builds like water behind a dam, and when the pressure is ready, it flows through ATP synthase, the most elegant turbine in the world. Spinning, clicking, building ATP is born, not from fire, not from hunger, but from the breath of water and the push of light. Water is rarely credited. We praise the leaf, the sun, the sugar, the green, but without water, without its journey, its rise, its surrender, nothing happens. Nothing lives. Water does not need to be seen to be known. It is in every cell of your body. It is in your blood, your eyes, your breath. You are, in this way, a continuation of water's path. The plants give it form. The leaf gives it direction. But the sacrifice, the splitting, the giving that is water's alone. You return now to the root, to the place where the droplet was first drawn in. Imagine that quiet movement upward, from dark to light, from stillness to transformation. Every tree you've ever sat beneath, every salad you've ever eaten, every breath you've taken on a green hilltop, all began in this underground stillness. Water, pulled without asking, split without resistance, given without regret. You lie here, now, your body slowing. The rhythm of your breath echoes the rise and fall of molecules, drawn upward through trunks and stems, splitting apart in green rooms where sunlight whispers. And even now tonight, as you sleep, it continues. Deep in the forest, saplings rise and pull on mountain slopes. Moss drinks in mist. In farmlands, crops reach silently toward the stars. And underground, the water waits again, always ready. But water is not the only giver. It partners with something else. It shares its work with a presence in the air. A gas so light it goes unnoticed until it's drawn in, captured, held, and changed. Carbon dioxide. It too is invisible. It too waits for an invitation. And when light and water have done their part, carbon arrives to finish the story, to become sugar, to become structure, to become you. And so the cycle deepens from sun to water to air. And in the next moment, in the next breath, you will follow the path of carbon and watch as it enters the leaf like a whisper and leaves as something solid, something sweet, something the world depends on. Let yourself drift upward now, out of the soil, through the stem, into the light, where carbon waits, ready to be changed. Air surrounds you. You breathe it in without thinking, not noticing the particles that drift past your nose, not seeing the invisible mix that keeps you alive. Among those unseen guests is carbon dioxide CO. It's not flashy, not fragrant, not loud, but it is everywhere, hovering above oceans, weaving through forests, curling around city corners, and sitting now in your very lungs. Every time you exhale, you release some. Every whisper you make carries carbon with it. Every sigh, every song, Every sleeping breath, you give a little back to the world. But carbon does not vanish. It drifts, it waits, and one day it meets a leaf. This leaf is still. It doesn't chase the carbon or trap it. It simply opens, using small mouths on its underside called stomata. These tiny pores breathe in air without fanfare. They allow the carbon dioxide to slip inside, where it is welcomed into the green interior and handed gently to the Calvin cycle. This is not a chase. This is not a war. This is a whisper, a welcome, a turning inward. The Calvin cycle is a soft loop, a cycle that doesn't shout for attention, but builds the sugars that sustain life, quietly, slowly, completely. Let's follow the carbon now. Imagine one molecule of CO floating weightless in the leaf's open space. It is met by an enzyme called RuBCO, the most abundant protein on the planet, working silently in nearly every green cell. RuBCO doesn't grab, it doesn't force. It fixes a word that means to hold, to place, to begin. With care. It attaches the carbon to a 5-carbon sugar named RuBP. For a moment, they hold together, then split into 2 smaller parts. This is the first step. From this, all else follows. Each carbon, now stabilized, moves through the loop, bending, rearranging, receiving energy from ATP and NADPH, those glowing gifts made earlier from light and water. The Calvin cycle is patient. It does not rush to make sugar in one spin. It takes several turns, each cycle gathering more carbon, more pieces of the puzzle, until finally, a full glucose molecule is born. Glucose, the simple sugar that plants store and animals crave. The building block for cellulose, the fuel for flowers, the sweet memory in fruit. This sugar is more than food. It is structure. It becomes leaves, stems, seeds, bark, and bloom. It feeds the world directly or in long echoes. You eat bread, you drink juice, you chew on greens, snack on berries, and in all of them is carbon once just breath, now folded into something that gives you life, and even beyond food, the story stretches. The wood in your chair, the cotton in your shirt, the roots of a tree gripping soil, all contain carbon once held in the sky. The Calvin cycle does not tire. It turns again and again, fed by sunlight's energy, nourished by water's gift, guided by carbon's quiet arrival. And carbon itself, so often blamed, so often misunderstood, is not a villain. It is a participant, a builder, a thread in the web of life. It can be too much, yes, pushed into the air by fires, by fuels, by our machines and desires. But at its core, carbon simply wants to belong. It wants to rest in roots, to live in leaves, to become part of something still. You imagine now the air around a tree, carbon dioxide moving slowly, invisibly, drifting downward toward an open stoma. It enters. It changes. It stays. The sugar built in the Calvin cycle will leave the leaf, traveling through narrow tubes to the rest of the plant, to the roots for storage, to the fruits for sweetness, to the flowers for blooming, and some of it will be eaten by a deer, by a bee, by a child. And in each, the carbon continues, entering blood, entering cells, entering thought and memory and movement. You are made of carbon. So is every animal, every breath, every poem written by a hand. So is the dust of stars, the black of ink, the edge of every fingerprint. And for much of life, that carbon began as a whisper into a leaf, an invitation met with calm, chemical grace. You return now to the Calvin cycle. It has finished another turn. The enzymes rest for a moment, ready to receive again, ready to begin again. There is a peace in cycles, in the knowing that things will return. Carbon does not disappear, it shifts, it loops, and in each turn it gives life a shape. You breathe out, a leaf breathes in. Carbon travels, transforms, becomes dot. And in this slow dance, life is written again and again. The world spins, the cycle turns, and sugar waits to move. But where will it go? How does that sugar leave the leaf and enter the world beyond? There is a journey ahead, one that reaches from plant to animal, from forest to fawn, from sugar to SINEW. Follow it now as the leaf releases its creation, sending sweetness outward, into mouths, into wings, into the soft paws of those who wait to feed. The leaf does not keep what it makes. It could, perhaps storing every drop of sugar, every molecule of energy, hoarding sweetness for its own quiet bloom. But it doesn't. It shares. The sugars made in the Calvin cycle begin to move, slowly. Through veins called phloem, they drift out of the leaf and into the body of the plant. Not with speed, but with purpose. This movement is called translocation, a soft shifting of energy from the site of creation to the site of need, from memory to the roots, the seeds, the fruit. Some sugars travel downward, sinking into tubers and bulbs, coiling underground for winter. Others rise into flowers, stretching into petals, feeding color, nectar, and scent. And some reach outward into fruits, into grains, into pods that wait patiently to be eaten by something with teeth, with hunger, with need. This is where your path begins. You pick an apple, you bite into a slice of bread, you spoon honey onto your tongue. You do not feel the Calvin cycle, you do not taste the sunlight, but it is there, folded in. The sugar enters your body as glucose, the same simple molecule built by the leaf. And now it continues its journey, this time inside you. Your cells know what to do, each one a quiet alchemist, each one ready to turn sugar into something it can use. This is called cellular respiration. You breathe in oxygen, remember it, the gas released by water's quiet sacrifice. Now it returns to complete the loop. Oxygen and glucose meet in your cells, not with a bang, not with fire, but with a hush of chemistry, a whisper exchanged in the inner chambers of your being. Inside the mitochondria, the glucose is broken down, its bonds loosened, its energy released. This is how you move, how you speak, how you blink and dream and stretch your fingers. You are fueled by sugar made in sunlight and broken apart in your blood. The carbon in glucose is not wasted. It is exhaled as carbon dioxide, a return, a release, a gift back to the air. You breathe it out. A tree breathes it in. And the cycle continues. This isn't philosophy. This is biology. You are the second half of photosynthesis. You are the reason it matters. You are the creature who returns the carbon, who consumes the sugar, who gives the oxygen purpose. You are not separate from the leaf. You are one chapter later in the same story. The plant built the sugar. You burned it. The plant exhaled oxygen. You inhaled it. You are not only made of stardust, you are made of chloroplasts, of enzymes, of green memories you never saw but deeply carry. Your brain is powered by sugar. Your muscles contract because of ATP. Your very heartbeat is fueled by a sugar molecule born in silence, under sunlight, in the palm of a leaf. When you run, when you laugh, when you sleep, you are completing a loop. You are drawing energy from a tree, even if you cannot see it. You are a photosynthetic echo, and even now, as you rest, your body continues its rhythm. You breathe in, you breathe out. Oxygen arrives, carbon leaves. The loop remains unbroken. Imagine now the ancient spiral. Leaf to sugar, sugar to body, body to breath, breath to air, air to leaf, round and round, always moving, always becoming. This is not a straight line. This is not a beginning or an end. This is a cycle folded endless, kind, and just as plants made sugar for you, you make carbon for them. Not by trying, not by effort, but simply by being alive. You are part of the earth's respiration. You are the night breath of the forest. You are the animal partner in a very old pact. Even in the quiet of your sleep, this exchange continues. You do not need to speak it. You only need to breathe. And when you eat again, when sugar returns to your mouth, you become once more a dancer. In the circle, a participant in a story that began before language, before cities, before names. You do not stand apart from the leaf. You complete it. But there is more to the story still. You've seen how light became energy, how energy became sugar, how sugar became you. Yet this elegant cycle is not new. It did not begin with trees or flowers. It started long before leaves unfurled, long before roots touched soil. It began in the sea, in ancient waters, in tiny cells without color or shape, cells that changed the world with nothing but light and time. If you drift back now, far back, beyond forests, beyond even land, you'll meet the first whisperers of sunlight, the ancestors of chloroplasts, the first to turn light into life, and in their silent labor, you will hear something familiar, the beginning of everything you've just seen. Before leaves, there was light. Before forests, there was water. And before flowers ever opened their petals to the sun, there were small, drifting things barely visible, barely alive, that struck a deal with light. To understand how you came. To be, how breath came to fill the lungs of birds and children and whales, you must go back. Not hundreds of years, not thousands, but billions, back to when the earth was quiet and young, its oceans warm and mineral rich, its skies thick with gases you could not breathe. There were no trees yet, no grass, no bees, but there were cells and light, and the beginning of something unimaginable. You float now in that ancient ocean, in the hush of a time before names. Around you, cells drift like dust in water. Among them, something new, STIRS, a kind of cell called cyanobacteria. They are simple. They have no nucleus, no arms, no voice, and yet they do something extraordinary. They take in carbon dioxide and water, and with the touch of sunlight, they make sugar. They release oxygen. They do it again and again with every ray of light, with every molecule of water, until the oceans begin to change. Oxygen rises not all at once, not like a storm, but slowly, invisibly, seeping into the sea, drifting upward into the sky. You may not hear it, but it is there, the beginning of breath, the world's first sigh. This event, this slow transformation, is known as the Great Oxygenation Event. It happened over 2 billion years ago, and it changed everything. The air became different. The oceans shifted. Some life forms vanished, unable to survive in the rising oxygen. Others adapted, evolved, thrived. You are descended from those that thrived. The cyanobacteria didn't stop. They kept turning light into life, oxygenating the seas, reshaping the skies. They were small, but together they were powerful, like a whisper that becomes a wind. Now watch closely. One day, a different kind of cellar, larger, one's a cyanobacterium. But instead of digesting it, something unexpected happens. The two form a partnership. The cyanobacterium keeps doing what it does best, photosynthesis. And the larger cell shelters it, feeds it, protects it. Over time, they become inseparable. This is the birth of the chloroplast, a cyanobacterium that took root inside another cell and stayed. It is a moment not marked by sound or celebration, but it echoes across the green world today. Every leaf, every blade of grass, every algae bloom in the sea, every dandelion in a sidewalk crack, they all carry this quiet partnership in their cells. It is called endosymbiosis, living within. Living together, the chloroplast is no longer its own creature, but it remembers what it once was. It remembers how to use light, how to gather energy from the sun and pass it on, and now, in this new home, it shares that ability with the host cell, with the whole plant, with the planet. You might imagine this as the world's first agreement, a contract without paper, without words, just action, repetition, trust. I will make sugar, says the chloroplast. I will carry you forward, replies the cell, and so it goes, over eons, from one cell to another, from algae to moss to fern to tree. The green world unfolds. Fossils speak of this shift. Rock layers rich in iron, once grey, begin to rust, oxidized by rising oxygen, stained by the breath of photosynthesis. The atmosphere begins to carry air you could breathe. Not overnight, not in decades, but over millions of years. Carbon dioxide decreases, oxygen builds. Life explodes in diversity. From the simplest microbes to complex animals, everything changes. All because of a tiny cell in the sea that made a pact with light. You drift now through time. You see plants climbing out of water, evolving new shapes to reach the sun. Leaves widen, roots deepen. Flowers arrive, attracting pollinators with color and scent. And through it all, the chloroplast remains, tucked within every cell of every plant, carrying on its task. It does not need recognition. It does not seek credit. It simply continues. Even now, inside the leaf, outside your window, the chloroplast is working. It is honoring a promise made. Before mountains rose, before mammals walked, before humans wondered why the sky was blue, you carry echoes of this pact in your own cells. Not chloroplasts, but mitochondria, another partnership formed long ago, allowing you to breathe, to move, to burn energy. These ancient agreements are written in your DNA. You are a collection of collaborations. You are a symphony of shared effort, humming quietly beneath your skin. In a way, photosynthesis didn't just shape plants, it shaped everything. It made complex life possible. It made room for breath. The oxygen you inhale now was born of this pact. The sugars you eat were crafted by this trust. Your very presence is part of its unfolding. Sometimes you might feel small in the face of deep time. Billions of years, endless seas, cells without names. But smallness is not insignificance. Smallness is detail. And in the smallest degree, water, carbon, life rises. You rest now on the edge of time. Billions of years behind you. Green branches stretching ahead. The chloroplast continues its work. Not with pride, but with purpose. and what it creates, it offers. It sends sugar outward, not just to build stems and seeds, but to feed, to give energy to others, to the winged, the pawed, the furred, to those who do not photosynthesize, but who depend on those who do. You are one of those. So is the deer in the meadow, the butterfly on the branch, the fox in the field. You eat what the chloroplast builds. You run on its sugar. You live by its gift. So now, follow it. Follow the sugar as it leaves the leaf, as it travels through veins, through the garden, into mouths, into nests, into the hungry bellies of life. Photosynthesis feeds the planet, and the planet answers with motion, with sound, with breath. The leaf does not eat what it makes. It creates, then it gives. And what it gives, sugar, quiet and sweet, becomes the language that life answers with movement. Photosynthesis begins in stillness, but it ends in motion. And you are about to follow that motion as it weaves through field, forest, and feather. The sugar made in a green leaf travels through stem and branch, settling into a fruit soft, ripened, waiting. And in the hush of morning, a bird lands. She hops along the branch. She tilts her head. She pecks. A bite, a pause, another bite, until sugar coats her tongue. Glucose moves into her blood, and energy stirs her wings. In moments, she lifts into the sky, from chloroplast to lift off sunlight, turned to flight. This is how the world is fed. Elsewhere, a fawn noses through tall grass. The blades tremble as her muzzle moves. She eats slowly, delicately, pulling the green into her mouth, chewing, swallowing, beginning. The grass, grown through photosynthesis, holds energy that has crossed galaxies, from star to leaf, to her young muscles. Soon she run, and the rabbit, too, beneath the hedgerow, nibbles on clover that hummed with chlorophyll, and the bees sip nectar drawn from sugar, and the bear pours berries into its mouth, and the fox waits, hunting those who've eaten light. In this way, photosynthesis spreads, not by leaf alone, but by the hunger it answers. This hunger is not greed, it is the body's ancient question. Where can I find what keeps me alive? The answer begins in green. But sugar doesn't stop with plant eaters. The caterpillar eats the leaf. The bird eats the caterpillar. The hawk eats the bird. And in every step, the sugar moves forward. It's called a food chain, but the word is soft. It's more like a thread, knotted and braided into loops, a food web, shimmering with connections. At every link. Photosynthesis is there, not always visible, but always essential. Even predators, those with sharp teeth and swift paws, owe their strength to the plants they do not eat, because the prey they hunt was fed by the leaf. Even you, your breakfast cereal, toast, fruit began in a field. Your dinner, no matter what it is, comes from sunlight stored in a plant, or in the animal who ate the plant. You are not outside the food web. You are in it, always. You are fed by the leaf's labor, by the chloroplast's quiet work, and yet, the leaf does not demand thanks. It gives without needing praise. Its gift is not personal. It is universal. But still, let's linger with the ones who eat. Think of the caterpillar again. Its world is small, just a few inches of stem and air. It chews through leaf after leaf, glucose turning into growth, cells dividing, legs strengthening, until one day that same caterpillar wraps itself in silk and waits inside the cocoon. Sugar becomes change. Wings form, a new shape unfolds, and when it emerges, the butterfly sips nectar, liquid sugar made for the purpose of pollination. A new life begins, made of the old leaf. This is the cycle. Energy moving from green to grace, from photosynthesis to flight. Now picture a forest, an entire ecosystem built on green generosity. Leaves high in the canopy gather sunlight. Mosses on the ground photosynthesize in quiet shade. Lichens on bark catch stray photons. Every creature in that forest depends on that captured light, either directly, by eating plants, or indirectly, by eating those who do. Even the fungi on the forest floor, though they do not photosynthesize, feast on fallen leaves. They break down what once was green and return it to the soil. That soil feeds the roots. And the cycle begins again. In this way, light is never wasted. It is passed on from cell to cell, from species to species, from sugar to muscle, from leaf to paw print. The world is a story told in chlorophyll, and every animal is a sentence written in its ink, even in the sea. This truth remains. Algae drift in sunlit shallows, tiny green factories in constant motion. They feed krill, who feed fish, who feed seals, who feed orcas. The ocean, vast as it is, runs on photosynthesis too. And when whales dive and breach, when dolphins arc through the surf, they carry that energy in their leap. Energy first caught by a single-celled plant glowing just beneath the surface. You lie still now, but your body is part of this chain. Part of the hunger, part of the answer. Your breakfast fuels your brain. Your lunch carries you through the afternoon. Your dinner lets your chest rise and fall as sleep begins to settle over you. And behind it all, a leaf, a blade of grass, a field of corn, a berry on a branch. Every bite a gift handed down from chloroplasts, transformed through mouths and muscles and metabolism. And one day, when your body is still for good, it too will return. It will feed the soil, feed the roots, feed the plants. Photosynthesis will find you again. And once more, you will be part of the leaf. You are not separate. You are recycled, light borrowed, light returned, and so is the bird, and the fawn, and the caterpillar, and the lion, and the girl watching the tree outside her window. Each of them is sunlight in another form. Each of them was fed by a leaf. This is the miracle of Green Dot. It is not loud. It is not fast. It is not proud, but it is constant. And it is everywhere. Even now, as you lie in bed, eyes soft, lungs filling with the oxygen a plant is given, you are being held in a web of green threads. You are still being fed, but not. All feeding happens in wild fields. Not all plants grow in forests. Not all sunlight is caught by trees. In cities, too, in cracks of pavement, on rooftops and windowsills, the leaf persists. Photosynthesis does not wait for perfect silence. It works in the world you know. And so, as life grows amidst concrete and glass, as moss gathers on bricks and ivy climbs old walls, the gift of green continues, and you will follow it there, to the place where photosynthesis hums beneath traffic, where nature rises through the noise. You may think the city is a place without nature, a place where steel and stone have one, where glass towers cast shadows long enough to swallow green, where machines outnumber birds, and the only light is electric. But photosynthesis does not vanish in the city. It lingers, it climbs, it hums behind the noise. It has learned to adapt, just like you. And if you pause long enough, you will see it. A tree leans against a sidewalk. Its roots push quietly against pavement, lifting the concrete with a strength no one noticed forming. Its leaves catch sunlight reflected off windows, and inside them, chloroplasts continue their silent craft. A rooftop garden blooms above a grocery store. Tomatoes redden in the breeze. Bees flit between basil and mint. The city forgets them, but they do not forget the sun. On a brick wall, ivy climbs, curling upward, pixel by pixel, carving soft green rivers across red stone. It asks for nothing but light. It turns the old building into a breathing surface. Photosynthesis is not loud enough to compete with engines, but it is persistent. It hides in courtyards. It shelters in balconies. It whispers through moss tucked in alley cracks. Even weeds, the wild volunteers of the urban world, grow through broken sidewalks, each leaf a chloroplast-covered protest. Against forgetting where we come from, cities were built by people, but people were built by plants. And so, inevitably, the two intertwine. Street trees are planted for shade, but they do more. They breathe for you. They filter air. They hold water. They feed birds who eat seeds, who drop new seeds, who start new trees. A park sits in the center of your neighborhood, an island of green inside the gray. You've walked past it before, but today, look again. Each blade of grass catches light. Each flower is a tiny solar engine. Children laugh in its shade. Dogs run along its borders. Squirrels chase each other through maple branches whose leaves are building sugar, feeding roots, exhaling oxygen. Even your apartment holds photosynthesis. A windowsill fern, a pothos vine dangling above the kitchen sink, a basil plant by the coffee maker. These plants are not decoration, they are survival. They are quiet roommates who work while you sleep, and still deeper beneath streets, in places you never see, tree roots run like veins. They search for water. They anchor the city. They speak to one another through fungal threads in a network scientists call the Wood Wide Web, even here under parking garages, beneath stadiums. The underground holds hands with green dot, and above, in the smog-softened sky, sunlight still reaches leaves, still warms them, still invites the ancient cycle to begin. Carbon dioxide hangs heavier in the city. Car, exhaust, heating systems, industry, but photosynthesis answers, pulling carbon in, tucking it gently into sugar, cleansing the sky a breath at a time. A single tree on your street can absorb over 20 kilograms of CO each year. It does not need applause. It does not ask for thanks. It just does. Even at night, when the sun sets and the hum of streetlights replaces birdsong, the plants do not disappear. They rest. They wait. And with morning, they begin again. Some cities have learned to listen. In Singapore, vertical gardens climb skyscrapers, walls turned into forests, windows bordered by blooms. The air feels different. They're cooler, softer, not because of technology, but because of plants. In Tokyo, rice grows in rooftop paddies. In Nairobi, roadside gardens sell kale by the bundle. In New York, old railways are turned into hanging parks. In Karachi, bougainvillea covers balconies in magenta silence. Everywhere, the green returns, not in the way it once was, but in the way it can be, because the leaf does not complain. It simply looks for light, and when it finds it, it begins again. And so, the city breathes. Not just through you, but through the trees that outlast tenants. Through the moss that cushions stone. Through the algae that coats forgotten fountains. You are part of this breathing. When you step out the door in the morning, you walk through a shared exhale. The air you take in has been shaped by city plants, and by rural forests, by mountain meadows, by seaweed in the ocean. All of it connected, all of it cycling. You carry your breath into the city, and the city gives breath back. Even your clothes speak of photosynthesis. Cotton grown in fields, linen woven from flax, wool fed by sheep, fed by grass. Even your shelter, wood beams, bamboo floors, paper books began with sunlight caught in cells. Even your food, vegetables at the market, fruits in your basket, rice in your bowl, all born of chloroplasts. Even your thoughts fueled by oxygen and sugar are leaves reimagined by neurons. And when the day ends, when the streetlights flicker on, when the windows fill with soft indoor glow, the plants stay where they are, still working, still breathing. They are not separate from the city. They are the city, the lungs, the skin, the roots, the rhythm. The more you notice them, the more you see. A pothole sprouting daisies, a rooftop shaded by fig trees, a market, cellar watering mint in plastic tubs, a child holding a dandelion like a treasure. Photosynthesis lives here too. You don't need a forest to be part of the green. You don't need silence. You only need light. Because wherever light lands, on a leaf, on a blade, on a sprout, the cycle begins again. And wherever that cycle begins, life follows. Even if you never see it. Even if the sirens are loud. Even if the city feels too tall. There is still breath beneath the noise. But now, as the evening deepens, as windows shut and traffic softens, there is one more thought to follow, that the air you take in now was made by something rooted, that your exhale will be caught by something still, that even as you sleep, this exchange continues. And in the space between your breath and the leaf, a quiet promise holds. But where does this promise lead? To the last truth, that every breath you take was a leaf's first gift, and that the cycle, so ancient and so quiet, doesn't end with you. It continues even now, especially now. Breathe in, let it be gentle. Let the air slip in like a whisper, and as it fills your chest, consider this, where that breath came from. Not just the air around you, not just the sky or the breeze, but from a leaf. Somewhere, perhaps near, perhaps far, a leaf gave it to you. This is not poetry. It is biology. It is the quiet choreography of life. Photosynthesis makes the oxygen you need, and your breath completes the circle. You take in what the plant releases, and you release what the plant takes in. You are linked by breath, by carbon, by the soft exchange of invisible gifts. Every time you breathe out, you give back carbon dioxide. Not a waste, not a burden, but an offering. The leaf accepts it, not with noise, not with need, but with open pores and silent readiness. It draws in the carbon you let go, and with water and light, it begins again. This is the great reciprocity, the mutual agreement made without words. You inhale what the plant exhaled, and it inhales what you leave behind. It happens all day. It happens all night. In forests, in cities, in meadows and mountaintops, even in your sleep, a breath leaves you. It floats outward, dances on the wind, rises into the canopy of a tree. The tree doesn't thank you. It doesn't need to. It simply continues the cycle. It uses your carbon to build leaves, bark, seeds, shade in this way. Your breath becomes tree, and someday, long from now, your last breath will rise, just like all the others. It will rise into the air, into the morning light, into the reach of a leaf, and the tree will take it in. The chloroplasts will welcome the carbon, feed it into the Calvin cycle, build sugar, build strength, and long after your voice is stilled, your breath will remain woven into the green. You do not end, you change. From breath to leaf, from leaf to fruit, from fruit to animal, from animal to memory. The carbon in your body was once in trees, in mountains, in stars. You are a temporary arrangement of ancient elements, a pause in the journey of carbon, held together by biology and time. Even now, as you lie in bed, you are part of that journey. The oxygen in your lungs was made from water and light, split apart by a chloroplast on a spring morning you will never see. That atom of oxygen, it might have come from a pine in Siberia or a kelp forest beneath Antarctic ice. It may have drifted for days before finding you. It entered your nose, passed through your throat, entered your bloodstream, and now pulses quietly in your cells, fueling thought, fueling rest. The gift of a plant made your comfort possible. Tomorrow you will give back, you will breathe again, and the carbon you release will begin its part of the cycle. Perhaps it will find a young sapling, or a rooftop tomato plant, or a blade of grass beside a quiet pond. Wherever it lands, it will not be wasted. The chloroplast will receive it, fix it, turn it into sugar, and again the cycle will continue. This breath-sharing is older than speech. It is older than mammals, older than feathers, older than roots. When the first trees rose, they exhaled oxygen into an atmosphere that would one day cradle birds. When the first animals appeared, they breathed in what leaves had made, and in return they gave carbon back. This exchange, simple, silent, sacred, shapes every life on earth, and in it there is no hierarchy, no greater, no lesser. The whale and the fern, the infant and the moss, the elephant and the plankton all breathe the same air. All give and take, all share in the balance. Photosynthesis is not just a plant story. It is yours. It runs in parallel to your life, beneath your daily thoughts, beneath your footsteps and errands and memories. It is there in the air that surrounds you, in the food you eat, in the breath you did not know you were sharing. And when you notice it, when you remember, something changes. You see the world not as scenery, but as kin. You understand that every breath you take is not an isolated act, but a conversation. You are not the only voice. The trees answer, the algae respond, the grass replies. This is the slow language of life. You speak it each time you inhale, and they speak back. Now let yourself settle into that rhythm. Inhale, feel the leaf beside you. Exhale, let it carry your carbon away. You do not need to travel far to be part of something vast. You are already inside it. You are the echo of sunlight, looping back into light. You are the returned breath of a tree that grew before you were born, and you are giving breath to one that will live beyond you. So rest here. Let your body fall soft. Let your lungs remember the promise. Let your mind drift like a fallen leaf, light on the wind, carried towards something still and green. You are not alone. You are not apart. You are not forgotten. You are inside the cycle. You are inside the breath. You are inside the leaf, and the leaf is inside you.